Okay, so welcome everybody to the 5 day training of how to believe in you. And in how to believe in you is all about how to believe in your potential. And the subtitle is the art of transforming the self. And I'm going to explain what this actually means. So today, this is the first day, and there's going to be 5 days, no Friday, but Saturday is the fifth day. And at the beginning, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I decided to do this training this month. If you have been sort of with me in my energy, you see that I have been conducting different training each month. But why this one this month? And to really um, give you a little bit of my background, because I know many people know me. I don't know how much people know about me actually, but there are also people who are joining this time who are new to me. So, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistic and how everything works. So, as you know, my name is Yuki, and each week, I almost feel like my role changes. I mean, the title. It means I really don't care too much about title. But I think my approach has been more and more towards helping people realizing who they are, which is the spiritual dimension of their existence, and how you can get the most out of this life, basically, right? How to get the most out of this physical experience. And the beauty is that you can choose whatever you desire. So you might call that success, you might call that fulfillment, you might call that happiness. People have different emphasis in what they want in their life. But I think the best title and terminology, how to describe myself and what I do, is I'm a spiritual slash conscious manifestation coach. Um, or I almost want to say I'm a practitioner, right? So I practice what I teach. And coaching is an interesting term because there are all kinds of coaching out there. But I think I'm a constant practitioner, and I want people to be the same, because one of the things that I'll be explaining today, which I will be explaining so you have an intellectual understanding, but intellectual understanding is just a surface of what you could possibly experience, meaning that in order to facilitate change, because I think everyone is seeking change, right? People seek knowledge and education for change, but not to disappoint you, but to tell you the truth, education and knowledge will never help you change at all. Um, and then I'm a consultant through Bob Proctor. So if you have been following Bob Proctor, who was in the movie The Secret, that's what one of the messages that he has, that we call it knowing doing gap, which I like to call more knowing being gap. Many people are seeking information and knowledge to change because they are seeking more, but it's more of the internalization and an embodiment that helps us change. And the other day, I was posting on my Facebook feed that the quote by Einstein that I love, that he talks about imagination is more important than knowledge. And if you are new to the world of imagination, meaning conscious imagination, because we're imagining all the time, you will be dive into it this week, because that's one of the things that I will be emphasizing. Now, if you are familiar with imagination, you will be diving to the another level, right? So one thing, sort of like something to be on the same page. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this replay, wherever you are, right? Because I think I have people from Japan joining for the first time. I don't think I had this last time. I think I have a group of people who are joining from New Zealand. So I don't know what the time difference is on New Zealand. Um, I want you to hear, and I want you to absorb and then sort of listen to the information that I'll be sharing this week as if you're hearing this for the first time. And I like to give people that invitation, because the moment you assume that you will be closing the door. And that's how I approach things, right? Like, and here's the thing. people know so much today. People can go to Google, people can go to YouTube, people have books that they can access, and they know so much, and they're wondering why their results are the same. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? You feel like you know a lot of stuff, and then you're feeling like what's missing, and then you seek more knowledge about it, right? But the knowledge is not what changes us. And you will hear me saying over and over this week, and it needs to click at the deeper level, because um, because in order for us to change, it's not in the intellect. Yeah. And so the first agreement that I want to have with everyone is to hear and listen to as if you have never heard this. And if you hear something that feels familiar because you heard before, I want you to go deeper. What does this mean in my life? So that's the second agreement that I want to have. So what I want you to have as you listen to and as I go over the material on belief this week is for you to really listen to contrasting with your life. So not as an idea and a concept that I'll be explaining, which is going to be a different concept, but how is this going to apply in my day-to-day life? How is this, how what I'm saying is going to apply to my thinking that I'm operating from, that feeling that I'm entertaining every single day, maybe habitually, how this particular information is going to be applying to my daily action and how I currently view the world. That contrast, which is a beginning and an entrance of the internalization, because here's the thing. We, in the beginning is to receive information like this. So I'm not denying that the work of understanding and seeking knowledge, right? That's where everything begins. And then we want to internalize it. And that beginning of internalization is for you to really contrast with yourself and the information. And then the third step is embodying. Those three steps needs to be integrated in every single day in order for the change to occur. And if you're only in the level of understanding, intellectually seeking knowledge from here and from over there, you will be at the surface level without shifting the root of the tree. You will be in the branch section, not the root of it. So we want to begin giving water to the root of it by going to internalization and embodiment. So that's the two agreements that I want to have. And I want to mention this at the beginning to set you up for success, because I know there are a lot of people who have been to my workshop in the past, and my goal is to help you change, right? And my goal is to help you have a different mindset and understanding, so you can apply from a different angle. So that's it, right? The logistic will be, so I'm not gonna go more than 45 minutes every single day, and we'll see how that goes, because I tend to sort of start talking more. So Monday through Thursday, each day I'll be addressing an important topic. And then Friday, you have a rest day, just like a workout, rest day. And then those are the catch-up days, right? And then each day at the end of actually, I'm gonna do this at the beginning. I thought about doing this at the beginning. So I will be presenting the reflection for each day. And I want you to reflect back, answering those questions each day. And then if you get behind with something, you have a day to catch up on Friday. And then Saturday will be sort of bonus training and Q&A. The bonus training, I usually don't know what I'm going to talk about. I always come up with that bonus training based on the feeling of in the Facebook group and the interaction that I have with people and what additional information I need to deliver. So and then the replay will be sent to your email every single day. And if you're watching this replay, probably you got this via email. And then it'll be uploaded on the Facebook group as well. And one invitation, if you have a Facebook, I would highly recommend to join the group and to actually engage in it. Now, why do I ask people to engage in it? Because the more, here's the thing, this is an online stuff, and it's easy for people to half engage and half sort of hide behind something. And the reason that I'm explaining all this is for you to be able to have a transformation. And in order for you to have a transformation in your thinking, in a way that you are operating, you want to participate in it, right? So when I sign up for something like this, I go full in for myself, right? And I'm not coming from, oh, is this going to help for me? Or sort of half and half doubt, being a doubt lamb, because that attitude is going to close the door for you, right? So what if I dive in fully in this, everything starting from today, moving forward, my entire future can change, right? And what if that change in my future is gonna be up to my attitude and participation of how much I want to engage? Because if you comment on Facebook and say something, you're sending and expressing your energy to the world, right? And also, you probably might be impacting others in the group. And that exchange of energy is so important for you to expand and grow, right? Yeah. So I just want that might be the third agreement, actually, for you to succeed. So that is the logistic. So let me give you a little bit about my background. So I currently live in the Bay Area, but the reason that this how to believe in you, in your potential, is so important for myself and for a lot of people is because some of you might know, like I was a kid who didn't have any confidence. And I was the kid who was worried about stuff all the time. I was the kid who was angry all the time, which many people are surprised when I say that, because people see me as almost the opposite of angry, which I think I overcame that through my inner work. And speaking of anger and the worriness, I think I inherited from my parents, because I see that in them, and I saw my parents in me, which something that I'll be talking about today for the concept of belief, right? And then I think one of the pivotal moment or the experience that I had since little was that because I was going through some asthma, I think I don't remember when I started to feel that, but when I noticed I was in that state. So, if you are not able to breathe properly when you're, let's say, age of 3, 4, 5, you will not feel good about you, and you start seeing the world from that lens, right? So imagine that you're not able to breathe freely, and you feel uncomfortable, and then it feels very uncomfortable being in your body, and it's a constant like exhaustion and constant sort of feeling of suffering, and then that becomes the worldview, right? So one of the things that I felt like I was going through was the world was not a fun place. The world was rather a scary place. And then life gave me more lessons. And I think I can remember the numbers of injuries that I have had when I was little. Like I was blood all over. I saw my forehead, I saw my back of the head. I had a friend who I was hanging out, and then I was in her house, and I think we were like I don't know what the age was, maybe like a 6 or 7 years old, and we were just playing, right? And then she was sort of climbing up the 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 thing that you can hang in the shower, the shower curtain, like a thing, right? And then she hung, and then it was my turn, and I hung, and I was heavier, so the whole thing dropped, and I was blood all over in my friend's place. So that kind of things, like I was having an injury after injury. So pain was the basic part of my life, right? So when you go through that kind of life when you're little, you don't develop a sense of confidence, which is that feeling of powerfulness within, and belief becomes something that is foreign, right? And fast forward, everything changed when I became a teenager. Everything changed when I started to dance. Everything changed when I became aligned with something that I was able to express myself fully. So I do believe that the power of connecting with your craft and the art. And I think each and every one of us has that art, the vehicle that we can express through ourselves freely. And then that vehicle becomes our study playground about ourselves, right? So today and this week, I'll be talking a lot about self-image, the concept of self. I cannot stress enough how important it is. And if you are familiar with the term self-image, as I said earlier, I want you to listen and hear in a way that as if it's the first time, because I probably gonna explain to you in a way that you have never heard before. I'm really into this, especially right now. So I have different ways to approach things. But when you become so I became a dancer. So I was a professional dancer in Tokyo, and I was in front of camera. I was in front of dancing for singers and then going for tours, and I was looking at myself through the mirror every single day because that's what dancers do, right? They check the form, they align with the music, and they express their emotions. And it's a constant study of yourself, where to go and how to feel in order for you to find the image that you want to show in the stage. Yeah. Now, that's one image, right? Now, there's another image inside of us that we actually are holding onto, which I'm going to be talking more about. So, um, I'm going to show this slide. So, I decided to share the reflection first at the beginning this time. So you have an idea of what you're going to be working on, right? So I want you to ask this question. What is the belief you want to change? And what is the outcome you will have with the new belief? So I'm going to explain what belief is in a moment, but I think you're here because you have something that you are currently working on. I think you're here because you see more possibilities in life that you want to expand into. I think you're here because there's a part of you that you are limiting yourself currently, not expressing fully the way you are hoping, and you are trying to figure out what that is, right? And what if that limitation can be eliminated, and if you are able to express yourself fully? Like, what if anything is possible, let's say if the only thing that's holding us back is our own mind, and you might say that there's this circumstance and that circumstance, but what if all those circumstances are generated by your own mind? So ultimately the root of and the cause of all the obstacles that you're perceiving is coming from your own mind. And if you're able to navigate that mind with your intention and with your choice, so you can maneuver everything. Now, what if you can feel limitless and to be able to um, go after and create the result, whatever you want to create? Now, what is that belief for you in that life? That is what I want you to begin thinking, right? So the reflection today, day one, is what is the belief you want to change? Because this workshop is about how to believe in you, in your potential. So actually, what it means is identify your potential. What is the potential that you want that potential to be? Because nobody else can decide that but you. And you can choose whatever you want it to be. This is interesting, right? Like your belief about you might dictate what the potential is. And the more you believe in yourself, the greater the potential can be drawn. And the more that potential expand, the more you believe in you. So it's like a chicken and an egg. But what if you can just entertain that in your mind's eyes, which is the imagination that I'll be talking about, and actually you can create anything. Like imagine that you have a blank sheet of paper and you can paint anything you want, and that is your life. And what would you paint? And then that outcome that you're painting, what kind of belief you're operating from. And I like that sort of analogy of blank sheet of paper, or you can, if playing a movie or coming up with your own movie, if that analogy works better for you, you can think that way. It's useful to have that sort of example or tangible way of putting on paper or putting in the movie, because what happens to most people is that we tend to subconsciously limit ourselves. Like if I just ask you, what is your potential? And then you start looking at your own life, and then you start probably going to all the limitations that you're perceiving right now. And then that stops you, right? But what if this is a character that you can draw and paint whoever you want it to be? That's where we want to begin. Yeah. So sheet of paper. This is the exercise that I would like you to do, right? What is the belief you want to change? What is the new belief that you're having? And then the outcome you will have with the new belief. So one of the things that I talk to people often is that the outside result is a reflection of our inside belief. So nothing can be accomplished or created in the third material world, that the lifestyle that you're living, that is beyond your belief, because belief is the mirror of the outside. So I'm going to get into that more. So this is the reflection, right? So as you hear what I'm going to talk about, going along with this slide, I want you to sort of continue to contrast with your belief, with your outcome. And also, as you hear what I say, and then as you listen to each concept, I want you to use that to study yourself. This is another layer. We're not studying the concept, we're studying ourselves through the concept. So I have these 5 things that I want to talk about today in the next 20 minutes. So 3 planes of life, which is the spiritual and intellectual and physical, right? And I'm going to talk about what belief is in the nature of the subconscious mind. We'll see how much I can talk about the law of cause and effect. And manifestation cannot be taught, needs to be talked about in anything that I'm going to talk about. So why did I title today Essence and Identity? Because identity is who you think you are and the belief that you're operating from, right? Now, one of the things that I talk about is that we're spiritual being living in a physical body and having gifted with intellect. That means that you're not a physical being and you're not an intellectual being. You are a spiritual being having a physical body and gifted with intellect. So your essence is not your physical body. Your essence is not your intellectual mind. Your essence of who you are, at the deepest level, who you truly are, is a spiritual being. Now, as I say that, now that information just landed in your intellect, right? So how do we embody, internalize, and embody this idea that we're a spiritual being? That's what we're going to be sort of exploring as we go along throughout this week, right? So I just want to give you those pointers because I think it's really easy for us to stay in an intellectual plane and understanding, but then that is just the surface, right? So this week, we're not talking or focusing too much on the essence, but we're talking and focusing more on the identity. because it is about belief, right? Now, if you can remember, the subtitle of this training this week is the art of transforming the self. Now, transformation, which I hear very often, and you probably use that term, you hear that term often. Trans means to change from one thing to the another, right? Transformation is to change the formation, how it is formed, right? That self. So the art of transforming the self means that how can we change and alter the formation of that self? So who is the self is an important question, because in a spiritual plane, a spiritual community, we talk about who are we, right? And in order for us to successfully believe in ourselves, in our potential, we need to understand who the self is, right? So the self that I'm talking about in this training is an intellectual concept. Yeah, belief is an intellectual concept. And then transforming the self means that you're changing the formation of the intellectual concept. That is changing the belief. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to last time I started to use the whiteboard that I think people liked it. So I'm going to use it again because this helps people to sort of see visually. So we're a spiritual being having an intellect and living in a physical body. P, right? Now, the self is an intellectual concept. So the self is who you think you are. Yeah, the self is who you think you are. Now, thinking is the language of the mind. This is by Joe Dispenza, if you know who that is. Thinking is the language of the mind. Feeling is the language of the body. When we think something with our mind, the body feels whatever the feeling that is congruent with that thinking. Yeah. Now, what is belief? There are different ways to explain belief, but this is right now what I like, how I like to explain the most. When you feel something long enough, that feeling becomes a state of being. And whatever the state of being you're in, I call that belief. You are operating from a certain belief. Yeah. So feeling is the language of the body and it's the vibration that you're in. And when you experience that same feeling long enough, that becomes a default state of being. And that is now your belief. Yeah. So I just want you to understand this dynamic and the relationship between your thoughts that you think with the mind, the intellectual mind, and the feeling that you experience in your body, and then how that is connected with belief. Belief. Yeah, this is my best handwriting. So I'm going to have you sort of process this as you think through, right? So here's the thing. The art of transforming the self. In order to change your belief, now there are all kinds of belief change models out there. And there are NLP stuff, EFT stuff, Psyche, and I think all the things are great. The way that I approach here this week and what I personally use is to use our own mind, to use our own mind and to use our thinking. Yes. So the self is the intellectual concept and what we think about ourselves. Whatever that we think about ourselves, the body corresponds with that idea of thinking and start feeling in a certain way. And then when you feel that feeling long enough, that becomes a belief. I know I'm repeating on purpose. So you can begin letting this information sink in, sink in, sink in. Now, what are the other ways that we can describe thinking? What is thinking made of? Thinking made of words, right? What is thinking? Thinking is talking quietly, right? Thinking is talking quietly. And then we're having this um, internal narrative all the time. We're having this internal dialogue in our head all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. So, what are we talking to ourselves? What are we telling ourselves? The words that we use in our mind is our thinking. So, whatever the words that we use that begins with I am, or I think, or I believe, or I have is an identification of the self. Does that make sense? So, what we want to begin bringing our attention is what are we thinking constantly on a default state, which is more of the day three stuff. And then what are we actually saying out loud, consciously, subconsciously? Now, tomorrow is more about transcending fear. And we're going to be talking about all the fear stuff, right? There are two reasons that people tends to be driven by fear. Um, and I think we want to watch what we are saying. We want to watch what we're saying out loud because every single thing that we say out loud, like for instance, I'm projecting my voice and you hear what I say, I am expressing energy. Yeah, that's another thing. We're a spiritual being living in the physical body and gifted with intellect. We're a spiritual being means that we're also an energetic being. What that really means is that every time when we use our intellect, because thoughts direct energy, feeling is a word that we invented to describe the level of vibration that the body is in, right? And a belief, every belief that we operate from contains certain frequency and vibration. We're a spiritual being means that we're also energetic beings. Does that make sense? So the words that we're using constantly, we're expressing energy and we're circulating energy. So when we begin understanding the laws of the universe, and I'm going to go to the law of cause and effect, whatever we put out there, it comes back. That's the third law of motion, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you send gratitude, appreciation comes back. And often, that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You might not see coming back from the same place, but universe has its own ways to sort of play things in place. So when you have that energy out, it will come back from somewhere out of nowhere, but it will come back, right? So that is the law of cause and effect. But let's come back to the spiritual being and energetic being, though. So this is more topic of tomorrow, but let me give you some intro. Like how much of the narrative is empowering? how much of what you're saying is empowering. And you can say positive or negative, but I like to say more empowering and disempowering, because empower means to be in that energy of power. And whenever you say something empowering, or when you feel empowered, you're giving power to yourself. Now, whenever we focus on the problem and the negativity, and when you tell ourselves that it's not working, or it's difficult, or not feeling confident, you're giving power to something else other than yourself, when we can choose to own that power. Now, I know that there's probably all kinds of reasons that we tends to focus on that, but as we go along, I want to convince you, but there's always a choice to think whatever thoughts that you want to be thinking, because nobody can choose for you, or nobody can change how you can choose, but you can choose whatever you want to choose. Does that make sense? Um, so take a moment to just observe what you're thinking right now. I just want to make it a little bit experiential. Like, take a moment to kind of observe your mind and what you're thinking. And then when you begin observing, you might be sort of watching this whiteboard, and then you're reading. And if you're reading, what you're reading is coming up on your mind, or you might be processing what I'm saying, and you might not notice what you're thinking, but the mind always wants to be thinking about something, just like the lung wants to breathe, right? So there's always something that is happening. And I think to truly own the power of our own mind, the very first step is to be able to observe what the mind is thinking. So if we're a spiritual being having a physical body and gifted with intellect, it means that our true essence is spiritual. We're not the body, we're not the mind, but we have the body and we have the mind that we can think. So when you begin observing your thinking, the awareness, the observer, is the real spiritual you, and your thoughts are not you. And in the moment you can observe your thinking, now you can choose whatever thoughts you want to be thinking. Now, day 3 is going to be on the habitual self. Now, if you have a pattern of what you have been telling yourself, how you have been thinking, we need some rewiring, because there's a neural circuit where you tends to go there over and over and over. So I think if there's one message that I want people to receive today, is to be an observer, because being an observer of your own thinking is to align with the spiritual essence. It's that simple. To be able to observe your own thinking means that you're lining up with the spiritual essence of who you are, because that spiritual awareness is the one that can observe your thoughts. Your thinking is what begins shaping your belief and identity. Thinking is the language of the mind, feeling is the language of the body. And when you think and feel something long enough, that becomes who you think and who you feel you are. And essentially, that becomes the state of being, which is your belief. Now, this is a training of how to believe in your potential. Now, right now, you have a certain belief about you because you have a constant cycle of thinking about you in a certain way that only colors the way that you feel about you. So what we're going to be exploring this week is how can we alter that thinking. When you change the way you think internally, and when you change the narrative of what you're telling yourself, what energy you're expressing using words to the world. Because whenever we say, I'm having a challenging time, that is, you are putting that energy out there. And the law of cause and effect is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're sending that this empowering energy out to the universe, you will get more of that because you're requesting that to the universe. That's the process of manifestation, right? We are manifesting all the time, and we want to become a conscious manifester. How do we begin that journey? By becoming an observant of your own thoughts. So let me say something that is probably one of the most important things that I'm going to say this week before we end today. You probably think that in order to change the lifestyle and the result, you need to change, right? Everyone says that. Like, you cannot be the same and expect a different result, right? In order to change the result, you need to change. Yeah. I used to think so too, but no longer. So here's the thing. This is gonna be a little bit of practice because it might puzzle you a little bit. You do not need to change anything. You only need to change how you see yourself. You only need to change how you see yourself. How you see yourself is what you think about you, because we think in picture. I didn't get to talk too much about imagination. I'm going to talk more about imagination. Imagination is a picture that you hold in the screen of your mind. Now we think in picture. So whenever you think about, if I say, think about dog, you thought about the picture of the dog, the actual animal, right? You didn't think dog. So we don't think in letter, we think in picture. So whenever we're thinking something, we're imagining something. We do not need to change ourselves in order to change the result. We only need to change how we see ourselves. So when we change the picture of who we think we are, everything begins changing. I think this is one of the most important things that I want to deliver. So let me write something. For the entire 5 days, this is the most important 4 words. Can you see this? I want you to pay super close attention how you see yourself. Yeah. You do not need to change yourself. You change how you see. There are 2 of you inside, the one that is seen and the one that is being seen. When we talk about releasing the past trauma, there is a certain conception of ourselves that we assume that is there, and we try to change ourselves, our past. That's why people are stuck there. But what about the one that is seen? Because when you have a subject that is seeing yourself and the object that is being seen within you. And then so many people are trying to take care of yourself based on what they believe they are and how they seen, but very little people are working on changing how they see. Does that make sense? You might need a little bit time to really understand this at the deeper level. So many people are focusing on changing yourself. Almost nobody focuses on how you see. But when you change the subject, how you see, how you're being seen will automatically be changed. So you don't need to change who you are. You only need to change how you see yourself. And that begins with your thinking. And when you take care of your thinking by observing, you will be able to shift and alter the feeling. And when you practice that process, which we're going to go over more, your belief will be changed. But in order to do that, you want to know what outcome you want, what belief you want to operate from, and to be able to cultivate that role of observant, tapping into the spiritual essence of who you are. Otherwise, the belief will be fixed. But if we own that idea and the truth of the spiritual essence, your identity is dynamic. It's not determined because who you are, you can be whoever you want to be by choosing the thoughts and how you see yourself. So um, that is it for today, essence and identity. So I hope it's sinking a little bit. And I know this might puzzle at the beginning, but if you go back to maybe go back to this, you'll be receiving the replay soon. So go back to this a couple of times. And if you could, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share the reflection again. If you could, here we go. Here, the work on the reflection. What is the belief you want to change? What is the outcome you will have with the new belief? That is going to be the reflection. So that is it, everyone, for day one. See, I said 45 minutes and now I'm 49 minutes. I'm gonna, and if you have any questions, I want you to bring that on Saturday morning, right? Saturday morning, and you will be, I'll answer all the questions. So I think that's it, right? That is it, everyone. Engage in the Facebook group, and you're welcome to ask questions on the Facebook group as well. So have an awesome day, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.